Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira, sitting next to, again, John Teixeira. And this week we have a welcomed guest, Landon Day with DayDream Photography. Thanks for coming in, Landon. This week we're going to talk about the importance of professional photography in your listings and your rentals, and really just general importance of professional photography. So if you have any interest in getting professional photography, anything we talk about today, give us a call, 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com.
I've done that before.
A couple times. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Let's get into it. Why is professional photography important?
No, let's first talk about why Landon's here to talk about that, because that's even more important. So Landon and I have been working. You've been doing my photography for all of our listings. I have no idea how long. I'm going to say at least 12, 13, 14 years, something like that.
As long as I've been in Texas.
You and I have known each other for a long time. And one of the things I know about you is that you also are considered one of the cream of the crop in your industry nationwide, right? I mean, like, you go around the country and teach other people that do what you do how to do it better. Am I wrong about that?
Nope, you're not.
Talk about that, because I know you won't talk about yourself in that way. If I can make you.
Okay. So I've actually taught literally all over the country, California to Florida, even Canada, lots of places in between. It's been a minute since I've done a lot of that. Even pre-COVID, I had kind of pulled back from actually doing the travel part of it. Some of that was because we actually have a team now here that I spend a little more time hands-on, dedicated to teaching and training them how to do what I do. But for the most part, you're not wrong. So we've won international awards. We've won the best of stuff for local. Since 2016, we've won every year. Something we're real proud of. I was just telling the rest of my team, when that started, when we won that first award, it was just me. And now it's a team of 11 of us and growing. Wow. So it's very, very much a team award at this point. Our team now covers from locally from Corsicana to Keller's, where they're actually home base out of. So beyond that, to Frisco now. A lot of people don't know we just had a Frisco, and I'm actually leaving on Sunday to go train a new photographer who's joining us in Lubbock.
Wow.
So this will be our first one. It's actually not in our immediate DFW area.
Wow. I don't know. Go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know of, I've been in the industry a long time, and I know a lot of my colleagues. We talk about things like photography, right? And all the things that go into what we do. And I don't know of another photographer in our market, the Dallas-Fort Worth market, that has as big a name and as big a following as you do. There are other companies that are kind of like franchise companies that people use, and I feel like everybody I talk to either uses one of those companies or you.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because when I started doing the real estate side of things, it was an accident. Like, I wasn't seeking out doing real estate photography. My background is in studio and portrait work and commercial work. So when the real estate opportunity became available, I didn't even know what I was doing. If you ask me, hey, I need a senior photographer, a wedding photographer, a baby photographer, I can give you 30 off the top of my head and not even have to think about it. But if you were to ask me, like you said, for another photographer who does real estate photography, I know one locally and I know one in Austin by name. And other than that, it's names of companies that franchise out. So you're not wrong. It's an interesting dynamic in the way that has come about. Like I said, I can list 20 portrait photographers in Mansfield. I don't know really anybody else that's doing real estate.
Well, you're good at what you do. You've made a name for yourself, and we're super appreciative of the fact that you came in here to talk about an important topic, right, Kyle?
Yeah, that's why it became such a great business, and you're able to grow it, right? It's because it's important and it shows value to your customers. And I imagine your customers are real estate professionals, people like that.
Yeah, so it's interesting because as this has grown, realtors talk. Like, there's no secret to that, right? So, like, all of this has grown completely with word of mouth. And when you have a network of professionals, a lot of let's say the cream of the crop, they have all been in business for a while. They all know each other. They all have those relationships with one another. Relationships are worth their weight in gold. So you keep one of them happy, they tell somebody about you, and then you piss one of them off, and they also tell someone about you. So it's better to stay on the front end of that, and that's just the way our business has grown, is just straight up word of mouth and referral since its beginning.
That's just true for our current economy, isn't it? We kind of have a results economy. Some people call it what do you call it, Kyle? A review economy. I mean, that's just kind of the way things have changed, right?
Yeah, you look at, specifically where we're at right now, like if you look at like an Airbnb review, like one bad review can shoot you in the foot for a while. So it's so much on that word of mouth, and it can be something completely ridiculous if they don't even know what's going on, but it doesn't even matter. One bad review can tank you for a while.
Absolutely.
Well, and you're part of that importance. You're part of that competitive action, right? So if two realtors have two listings in the same neighborhood at the same price, and mine sells and theirs doesn't, and they ask why, or how'd you get people in here? And we say Landon Day, or that's the difference, right?
So you know what's funny about that is that you and I talk about this a lot, Kyle, about how we go through listings, and I'm always rolling my eyes at what realtors and other people do, professionals. You're going through a group of listings, and one or two will pop out at you, and I think we're going to talk about this, right? And you could tell that there's professional photography involved there. But I've been doing this so long with Landon that I can literally go through a group of listings and tell you, okay, that's professional photography that Landon did, and that's somebody else's professional photography, and there's the iPhone.
So just this last week, it came up. I didn't know I knew the seller, but I had multiple agents reach out to me after they went on their sales pitch to them. And at the end of it, whoever was interviewed last, I don't remember who it was, they said, "Now, are you going to use Landon for your photos too?" They're like, "Yeah, how did you know?" Like, well, everybody else that's come in here already has said that they were going to use Landon for the photos. So I was like, I don't know if that means it's a plus at that point if everybody's using you, but it's also definitely a negative on the flip side if you're not.
Yep. I love it.
They ask, who do you use for photos?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we don't really have that answer. Okay, I'm not picking you.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems to be all the top guys are using Landon. So.
All right, so we got the right guy in here. Why do we, before we get into this, we're a property manager. You do all of our listings, all of our little rentals from $850 a month rentals to $4,000 a month rentals. We have you out for every single one of them. Mm-hmm. How many property managers do you have like us that are doing that?
Ooh.
That's just an interesting question I'm curious about.
I don't. Y'all are probably the only property manager on that note. We have some one-offs, but definitely on that kind of a volume. We may have somebody who's managing something for a friend or something. We've had one or two others over the years, but y'all are really the only one that does what you do that we work with.
Well, let's get into why. Why do we do that? Why is real estate photography, professional real estate photography, so important?
So my job can be construed a couple different ways, but my only job is to get somebody into that property or to get somebody to look at that property. Sometimes we get some feedback of like, hey, you can't smell the photo, but it looks really great. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong. And some of these things that we walk into, right? And some are like, man, it looks so much better in the photos. And like, okay, I mean,
then I did my job.
Then I did my job. Like my job is to get somebody to come and look at the property, and then at that point they can make up their own decision. But getting somebody in the door, and when somebody's looking, we're not in a 2020 market right now where there's 5 houses on the market.
Yep.
There's a few more houses on the market, and if somebody's scrolling through and there's 100 things that are popping up, and 5 of them jump at you, odds are those 5 have professional photos. And we could dive into some other things that are going to jump out at you too. But at a quick glance, if somebody's scrolling, Zillow or Realtor.com or whatever, those that jump and pop at you are going to have, the right color, the right pop of the sky, the right angle. It's going to be not something that was just taken with the phone. As good as your cell phone is, and it's amazing what it can do, it's not going to be able to do and stand out like what we can do.
Well, and that's a huge part of the importance, right, is your job is get people in the door. And statistically, the more people you get in the door, the more options you'll have for offers and all that. But not just statistically, like you said on Zillow and all these other places, these websites you will benefit on these websites. It's something very underappreciated if you have professional photography. Like Zillow, if you're not searching specifically, is going to show you the listings that people click the most, right?
So, and I've actually got some stats specific to Zillow, actually.
Okay.
So we are a Zillow preferred photographer. So that alone, in the large scheme of things, Zillow reached out to us directly and said, hey, in the beginning, any photo that y'all take, any property that y'all take is automatically going to get preferred placement on our website. So when I was having this conversation with them, I was like, hey, I appreciate that. That's an honor, but why? And they said, well, we want that landing page on our website to look good. We don't want, some dark exposed, photo of a bathroom with a toilet seat up as the front photo. We want our landing page of these websites to look professional and good. So we want your photos to be at the top of everything. And then as there have been other companies that have been doing more photography, then they've come back and said, hey, you're still going to get preferred placement. And even more so if you do a 3D tour, and even more so if you do a floor plan. Some of these things that they're just trying to drive more and more traffic to their site from, and just that media that is proven very beneficial. But selfishly, they want to look professional, and they want the listings that are going to pop and stand out to look good. And if you're the realtor that's using that type of marketing strategy, well, you're going to get preferred placement on those websites.
Well, it sounds mutually beneficial to all three parties. I mean,
everybody wins in that.
Yeah, you can market that. We get placement for it. They get placement for it. So, I mean,
it's just like a Google search. Like, you're not going to go past first page almost ever. You're never going past the second page. Same way when you're looking at houses. If you're just looking at a generic demographic, then you're going to scroll the first 10 on the welcome page and move on. And if you're not looking for a specific neighborhood or specific brackets or something like that,
and you may not get to those iPhone photo listings because there's so many of them that have professional photography if they're at the top of the list. Or even if you do, by the time you get there, there's already an emotional response that has happened from looking at all the listings that had your photos, right? So, like if I'm looking at, I don't know, if I'm looking at Zillow, then, I've already determined that this is a quality place for me to go because I've gone through 8 listings and every single one of them had Landon's photos or professional photography. And by the time I got to the iPhone photos, I'm almost dismissing that listing almost immediately.
Well, I heard you kind of wince when you said Zillow, and like I do fully understand.
Real estate professionals always wince when we say Zillow.
I know. And then I had to put on like my professional hat and then my consumer hat, because on a consumer side of things, like it is the awesome Amazon site of real estate from a consumer trying to find out what they're interested in doing. So love it or hate it, like it's part of the beast that you have to negotiate.
Yep. Well, we definitely recognize that. We definitely recognize that it's a beast that you got to do business with. So.
Well, and another piece of importance is the value, is psychological value that it adds, right? You could see, even if you're on the MLS, even if we're not using the fluff of what Zillow does and it's not being sorted this way, these consumers can see these houses with, say, phone photos and these houses with professional photography, and it could be the difference between, I can get a discount on this deal, or they see the professional photography and they're like, all right, I got to put a good offer in on this deal. Stuff like that can actually play a factor.
So let's even flip it around for a real estate professional side of things. These consumers are looking at Zillow, and they're looking at their next house already, and then they're going to look at how you're going to market and sell their house. So they're educated in that way. And if you say, I'm going to come in and take photos with my phone, this will work fine, and you're the first person they interview, and the next person says, hey, I'm going to come in and do professional photos. Okay. And the next person says, I'm going to do professional photos and a 3D tour and drone photos and twilight or whatever. Like, they don't care. They're not paying any more for it, but that's just more added benefit of you to be able to sell yourself to that homeowner at that point.
And you know what? It's so easy to do. Like I don't really understand the real estate professional that doesn't take the time and bear the expense to do it, because it's almost like a slam dunk. Like you are doing your client a disservice if you're not doing this, in my opinion. That's how I feel as both a consumer and as a real estate professional as I'm going through listings. And to your point, before you ever get to the kitchen table, that consumer, that person that you're sitting with that is asking you to sell your home is already so more educated, so far beyond what past clients were, right? In their level of education. They've already done it. They've already gone through. They've already surfed. They know every home within a mile radius of their home that's on the market. They know what they're up against. And before you sit there, you better also know and be prepared to compete, right? It just amazes me that people don't put in, like, what, Landon, how hard is it to schedule with you? I mean, it's
like ordering a pizza on a website.
It's not even that expensive. It's not that hard to do. It's like you said, we do it on a website. And if I'm in a crunch and I really need something, sometimes I call you. But
we've got a number for it's all good.
Yeah,
it's extremely easy, and I don't.
And our turnaround time is the next morning, so it's not like a long time. I was talking to the person who we're going to be up working with in Lubbock, and she said right now the issue is there's only a couple people doing photography. They're about 5 to 7 days away from being able to get in, and then their turnaround time is another 5 to 7 days. So the time they sign a listing and schedule photography, they're 2 weeks out. Well, that's not going to cut it. By the time somebody's ready to sell their house and they want the photos done, like we're talking, 48 hours, it needs to be live. Otherwise, almost that moment's gone. You got to catch it all while everything's still hot and exciting.
And essentially in that timeline, they're probably using phone photos in the most important time of the listing.
Yeah, that initial pop.
Yeah, that initial 10 days when it's live is without the professional photography. So it just devalues as a whole. So.
Yeah. It's one thing if you've got like a pocket listing and you're not broadcasting it out and you're putting some feelers out, like, okay. But if it's something that you're just going to throw out to the general population, then you got to put your best foot up front.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's why we a lot of times get your photography, regardless of whether these rentals are rented already or not, just so that we have them for the next time.
Sure.
So.
Hey, before we wrap this up, because I feel like we're probably killed this conversation, but there's more that goes into going and shooting, like having a great camera and going and putting it on a tripod and putting it in the right places, and all those things are important. Having the right equipment, knowing how to use the equipment, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the things people don't realize that we've learned the hard way from having both you and having bad photographers that are also professional photographers is the post-production or editing of those photos before they come to us is extremely important. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you've got a house that's got 18 different colors of light bulbs through the house, and half of them the blinds don't open right, or you can't get a ceiling fan to stop. Like these are all, or it's raining. These are all challenges that we face, all the time. Evidently, it hasn't rained here in like 3 weeks, so my yard's telling me that. But I mean, even in the spring and our rainy season, it doesn't matter when we know that people are on a time crunch. So we're going to shoot it in the rain. We're going to have a bright blue sky. Nobody's even going to know when it's all said and done. Or we go into a house that doesn't even have electricity on. We can make it bright, airy, soft, and look great. The light bulb one is a little trickier, but we can even do that. Views out windows is a one that took us a long time to really get a grasp on. And sometimes the view is completely irrelevant. Like we don't need to see the neighbor's house. I get that. But if there's a pool in the backyard, or you back up to the golf course, or something like that we want to emphasize, well, you need to be able to see out those windows and not just be completely blown out white. Like there's a lot on that back end of things. If a white baseboard is white, in real life, you get all your photos back and it's yellow or whatever color it may shift to through that process. It's good to have that post-production side of things. because of that, we've actually started working with, we have on our team now an editor, and they do all of our edits. So everything's running through one person. So instead of me editing one way and Catherine editing one way and Macy editing one way, and everybody's got a little bit different of a style and look, now we've even tried to standardize that across the board. So anybody on our team, everybody's going to have their own eyes, and everything's going to be a little bit different because of that. Like there's no denying that. But as far as the way the final product looks, it should be super consistent across no matter who on our team is doing it, and that is a really, really big deal.
Yeah.
Even as simple as like taking a pull pump out of a pool, or something as simple as that is important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because people probably think this, you don't Photoshop structural edits.
I was about to just say that. Like we will Photoshop things that are not permanent to the house, like a pool pump. We are not going to take the water tower out of the background, the power lines out of the background, the electric box in the front yard. Like, we are not going to touch that. And if you ask us to, we're just going to kind of shrug our shoulders and not do it. Like, and that
things
being
that are
said,
changeable.
That being said, we may use a creative camera angle to minimize what that stuff looks like, but we are not going to go through and literally Photoshop something out to do that.
Well, and the whole point is, I think the answer to the question is why is it so important is because if you take the whole process backwards, you're trying to sell or rent a home, right? And that takes getting an offer or an application, right? Which takes somebody to go through that home, which takes somebody to want to go through that home because they saw it online. Because I don't care. People like to say 92% of people start online. I don't care if you're 85 years old, 100% of people in 2023 start online. Like nobody gets in their car, drives down the street. Do you know one person?
I've actually got a stat on that.
Do you have one person yet?
No. So even in the age demographic of 77 to 97 years old, 60% of them said the most important thing was photography.
Okay.
So, and they're not seeing this on an MLS sheet that you're printing out. Like,
right.
So 60% of people are saying the most important thing at 97 years old.
Well, because they probably can't see very well, so they need the high resolution. That's right. It's very important to them.
I can attest to that. I can feel for that. But I mean, even so, to your point, is even that demographic that people think, well, they're the only ones that are going to get up and do it the old-fashioned way. No, we've been doing this for so long now that even they are now accustomed to the way we shop, the way we consume, even houses. There's no reason for anybody to get in their car, drive around looking for houses to frustrate themselves at this stage. I mean, nobody's doing it, right?
No, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to narrow down a neighborhood or a region, and I'm going to search out that area, and I'm going to tell my agent that this is where I want to go look at properties at.
So they used to say first impression was at the door, right? At the curb, right? Curb appeal was the most important thing. And it still is important that you have that curb appeal in the photos. But the step before that now in 2023 is that photography, right? The first impression is the picture that you present online.
So yes, there's an interesting thing I want to hit on, like in 2020, COVID time, like real estate was crazy, right? There was no denying that. And really at that point, there was a shortage of houses. There was people trying to move everywhere. And at that moment, you could put whatever you wanted to online and that house was going to sell. It's just the way it was. However, there were also a zillion agents trying to get 5 listings. So the flip side of when photography became important was, like I said earlier, if realtor 1 is not going to use photography, they're like, it's going to sell with an iPhone anyways. Well, as a homeowner, I don't want to be embarrassed to put my house out there to the market, looking like crap. So it was as important as getting the listing then as it was as selling the listing. And now we're kind of shifting back into that time where the photography is important to actually sell the house.
But it was a way of sifting through the agents too, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
but I would also contend it's a numbers game, right? So like even that person that could have sold with iPhone photos, maybe they got 10 offers, right? And maybe they sold $40,000 over asking, right? That was kind of a real thing, wasn't it? But what if they got professional photography and they got 25 offers and sold for $65,000 or $70,000 over asking. I mean, that's a realistic scenario. So even in that scenario where anybody can put a sign in their front yard that says for rent and rent a house, they don't even need photos. That's the reality. You don't even need photos. I could put a for rent sign in front of your house and put his number on it, and he'll get a ton of calls.
Well, yeah, it's my house.
Well, okay.
But in your example, Landon's photos cost that $20,000 difference, right? That's about what you charge for these photos.
Yeah, exactly.
$20,000.
Yeah, no,
photos?
nothing like that. Not even 1% of that. Not even. So, so to my point is, I don't need your photos to rent my houses as a property manager. Absolutely don't need them. I really don't need any photos, and I've proven that because sometimes we rent things before we get you out for whatever reason, because we're still working on it, whatever. And I've just got a listing with some general information and it rents, right? But if I have your photos, I'm going to have so many more applicants to choose from, and I would rather sift through 25 applicants and choose the best one than sift through 4.
Sure.
That's the point. It doesn't matter whether I need it or not. The point is it will make the end result so much better no matter what in any market, whether it's a COVID market or if it's a normal market. It doesn't matter.
Right now, what we're seeing is during that COVID market, everybody became a realtor because you could sell your friend's house, your mom's house in a weekend, and it was easy at that moment. And now, and before that, going back to even like 2007, 8, 9, 10, when things were really slow and things were sitting on the market forever, the agents that had best practices and policies and procedures in place were the agents that survived. And they also were the agents that killed it through COVID. And they're the agents that are still here in 2023. The agents that came who didn't use those best practices, didn't use things like professional photography, didn't use things potentially like a stager or a cleaner crew or those kind of things to be sure that everything was best foot forward. Those people sold their mom's house in 2020, and now they're not doing real estate anymore in 2023 because they didn't understand.
They don't even know how.
They don't even know how. They don't know what went into it. But the agents that were doing things right then, even when maybe you didn't have to, are the ones that are still right now that are killing it.
Yeah, I mean, these markets can become easier and harder, but you want to make sure to hire people that can work through all of them. So,
and right now, if it's harder, and instead of having, let's say, 1,000 agents and there's 500 agents, but these are 500 great agents, like really, that's better for everybody involved.
It's better for the consumer too. Yeah, and we talk a lot on this podcast about short-term rentals, Airbnbs, stuff like that. So I want to at least
good segue
into that point, because there is no avenue of this business that we do that professional photography is more important than on short-term rentals and Airbnbs.
Absolutely,
because getting people in the door is getting them reserved, right? They see the photos and they come check it out and they decide whether they want to pick that one and then do it on the next one, right?
Yeah.
That whole sales pitch is being done on Airbnb, on VRBO, or wherever you're at. And not just that, it's just like the Zillow aspect, the placement. You get placement on Airbnb and these apps based on what they see as professional photography. They go even more in depth into your photos. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars at this point in reading photos, comparing that to text, and giving away some secrets here. But that professional photography could not be more important to the listing. So something because you've taken professional photography for our Airbnbs.
I can't wait to hear Landon's perspective on short-term rentals, but I got to add to that, because that was a really good segue. I want to add to that the markets are so saturated right now. How do you as a listing, a short-term rental listing in almost any market, how do you set yourself aside and make sure that you're at the top of the list and you're the one that's seen and getting booked, when it seems like everybody's opening up a short-term rental nowadays, doesn't it, Landon? I mean,
quite literally, because I did too. So
yeah, but you were smart enough to have us manage it for you. So talk about that. What do you do differently as a photographer? Because this is kind of like all the same principles, right? Come into play here. But it seems like, to Kyle's point, it's even more critical in that that space?
Yeah, so in that space in particular, and actually Kyle was the first one to kind of lean in on me, and we kind of learned a little bit of this together. Was they're a little bit more like HGTV driven or Architectural Digest style. Like it's not necessarily about how big can I make this living room look, or
we talked about the emotional response that you get. It's even more important with that, isn't it?
It's about building a brand for these guys. Like our cabin's called Get Toasted. It's in Broken Bow. And in the photos, like the brand Get Toasted is all through the photos. And it's a look and a feel and a style. And it's super consistent through the whole property of, this warm, inviting, clean, earthy tone, cabin. But here's a detail shot of a cool pillow with leather and tassels that I'm sure my wife thought was cute, or, something like that. And I'm like, oh, but look at this whiskey barrel end table over here that I got. Like, it's but tying that all in together and making that brand of the emotional response of what can my kids do when they come to this? Oh, there's a dart game in the bedroom. Oh, there's a Nintendo Switch hanging on the wall, or, oh, there's a hot tub or a slide off the deck. All these kinds of things are going to get those triggers of that response where I can go through and take a beautiful photo of a house, but half of that goal is showing the space in general, because you're not selling the furniture, you're not selling the decor of the house. You're selling the floor plan of that property versus like a short-term rental. You're selling the vibe, the mood, the location. What am I going to do while I'm there? That's different than going to a hotel, that kind of a feel.
And you're selling one of the things you've done very well, especially at your cabin and all of our Airbnbs, but you're selling an experience and a perspective at the same time. So like in Broken Bow, everybody's got a hot tub, right?
Yep.
So you want to obviously show the hot tub, but what's the experience in the hot tub? Or what's the angle for you watching TV going to look like? What's it going to look like behind you? Is there another cabin staring you in the face when I turn around? Showing those perspectives is what makes it a little bit different too. What's important to people.
Yeah, and just those general amenities, like from the photos of our cabin in particular, like from the photo of the hot tub, you see it open with the TV and the fireplace to the left, and you see the fire pit to the right and cornhole boards off in the distance or something. Like from one photo, you're getting, oh, there's an outdoor seating here, there's an outdoor fireplace, or there's a fire pit out here to make s'mores on. Like one photo is telling a story of what you and your family can be doing, that evening when everybody's chilling at the cabin.
That's exactly right. So with regular real estate, we're selling lifestyle. With these, we're selling a guest experience, right? That's shorter. That's 5 days. And if I've got 100 cabins up in Broken Bow to choose from.
And you do.
Yeah. And then I really want to make a great choice. If I'm going to spend, whatever it is, hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars, depending on the length of your stay and when you're staying there, if I'm going to spend that hard-earned money and I've got that many choices, I'm really absorbing my guest experience through these photos and making a decision that way based on reviews, photos, descriptions, all of it, right? It's all important. Kyle, it makes me think, how important is it at a building like we've got our summer house building in Alabama, in Orange Beach, Alabama. And it's really funny, Kyle, that you can testify to this. You've got a building with 186 units that are all exactly the same layout, right? Like everybody's got roughly the same view. Some are higher, some are lower, but everyone's got the same view, the same beach, same amenities, same layout. But yet all of them get completely different results, partly due to the amenities and the photography.
Well, it's important because of placement, right? I mean, that's really all you can do when it's all the same things. And knowing what your sites do and all that stuff. So photography is the biggest way that I use to be successful in placement, because there's back end things you can know. Like I can look up the statistics of all of those 600 units. What's the most common thing people are looking for? If it's the pool, the balcony furniture, and counters, then my first 5 photos are going to involve those things. And Airbnb is going to check that my first 5 photos include those things, so they're going to place me higher. So the decision of where you put these photos is so important on all these listings, but especially on
the
short-term
secondary
rentals.
bathroom isn't as important as the view off the balcony where you see the beach. Like
Exactly, and you may get there, but that's not what people are searching, right? That's not what they're typing into the search bar, because you're really, I say SEO, but you're executing in a search engine, right? You're using photography to show up higher in a search engine, so. You want to be able to show what people are looking for, because if they can type in what they're looking for, their eyes will then seek out what they're looking for. And if you're not showing that front, up, and forward, then they're skipping you.
Yep.
Because like we've said, there's a lot of options. In Broken Bow, there's a ton of options. In Orange Beach, there's a ton of options. So it's all about making yourself important, right, with photography. So.
Yep.
And understanding the guest experience and understanding what they need and what they need to see, right? It's different for regular real estate. You mentioned the second bathroom. I'm sitting here thinking about how I only have so many spaces to put photos in, and usually you send me way more than I have, right? So, and that's so that, you're giving me everything I need so I can market in other places. But one of the first things that goes when I have to get rid of a photo is the laundry room.
Sure.
Right? Like,
unless it's spectacular.
A laundry
Everybody's got
room's a
one.
laundry room, and the most of the photo usually encompasses a washer and dryer mostly, right? The laundry rooms are just too small for you to get a camera in there to really show what the laundry room is like, right? So usually you got a photo that's 2/3 washer and dryer with a shelf above it or something. Am I wrong?
And a garage door.
No, you're never going to use that in regular real estate photography. I say never. You're usually not going to use that, but I'm thinking about like our
Very
beach
important in
condos.
our Airbnbs. Yeah.
Gosh, they're extremely important. People are wondering, well, I'm going to be there for 7 days. How much clothes do I have to bring? Oh, look, this one has laundry. Where's the laundry at? Am I going to wake up mom and dad when they, you know what I mean? Like all of that is super important. And we're putting that not front and center, but we're definitely making that a pivotal part of our listing.
Or it might not be on a real estate transaction.
Exactly. You just got to understand what.
Well, the garage is an even bigger point. You actually won't even take a photo of the garage unless I ask you to, and I'm only going to ask you to in an Airbnb shoot if I'm allowing use of the garage, right? Because it matters to them.
No, we use the example, like just every house has a laundry room, unless you're in downtown Fort Worth and a house was built in the 20s and you're like, hey, where did they retrofit that laundry? Because it wasn't originally built with a laundry. And then you try to show, they added it in this garage space, or they converted a cabinet in the kitchen. And then it's got a different level of importance, right? But any house since the 60s, probably, like I can't imagine them building ever now without a laundry room. Like it's just assumed it's there.
Yeah. And they want to see
It's
whether
assumed you know what it looks like. Too.
Yeah.
And nowadays they make them, off of the master closet, and they make really cool laundry rooms that probably are worth putting in your professional photography. But again, that goes back to understanding your audience, understanding your amenities. Why are you presenting this, and why or not presenting it?
If it's like a double stack, you want to know that. Because then you can't.
If that's all you got room for, then I don't want to know.
I don't want that in my picture. Yep.
It may not sell the property, but
Yep.
This has been a more lengthy conversation than I thought it would be, Landon. There's a lot more to this, huh?
We could talk this in circles all we want.
Do you want to tell us more about your business and how you got where you are? And I know you already kind of got into that a little bit, but you want to take this opportunity to tell us about your business and maybe tell people how they would get to you if they want real estate photography or any other photography.
Yeah, so we are our studio. We have a physical studio location in downtown Mansfield. Our building was built in 1890. Super cool. It's got real cool rafters, big space. In there is where we office out of, have meetings, etc. But we've got a full studio in there where we do anything from commercial product shoots. Like we just finished a big project for an international coffee maker company. Like it's really cool. To headshots of families and everything in between, branding photos, etc. There's actually a couple of people on our team who can do that outside of even just me. But then real estate wise, like I already said, we're scattered all over DFW. We know everybody hates a travel fee, and sometimes they're unavoidable, but we've tried to strategically spread out across the Metroplex to avoid those. One, it helps everybody with travel time anyways, but I can't go to Frisco and drive 2 hours each way for the same price I could shoot a job here in Mansfield. Like it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But we've spread out that way, and it's just been really cool. Like I said, right now we've got 11 of us. How bad is that? I don't even know.
Well,
like, I remember when it was
one
just
out.
me, and now I have to sit here and like think about like how many people we have on the team, and it just blows my mind when I start thinking back. Like when you see where you started and where you're at now, you like have to pinch yourself and step back. Like, wow, this is really the coolest job ever, and I get to do it every day.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Before this, you taught high school.
Yeah, I taught at
You're a
Mansfield
golf
High.
coach also, right?
No, I played golf through college,
played
but I
golf.
was never a golf coach.
Okay. All right. Well, and so you had a career. That was what you set out to do. And at some point you were inspired to leave the comforts of having a regular paycheck and doing something that you once was inspired to do, to go do your own thing.
Yeah, so even in college, it was a goal of mine to be able to do photography full time at some point. So even as I was going through opening Best Buys or being a teacher early on, like the goal was always there to be full time. But you're not wrong. Like leaving a guaranteed paycheck is very hard to do. Even as a teacher, and teacher salaries are public. Like it's no secret they don't make a ton of money for what they do. Even that paycheck was really, something that was hard to walk away from just because it was consistent, dependable. You knew it was coming every month and you could plan accordingly. Being a self-employed business owner is a completely can of worms. And, sometimes my boss is a jerk and he makes me work extra time. And sometimes he's
Mine
like, hey,
too.
go mow the yard in the middle of the day. And okay, let's go mow the yard. Like it's just, it's a whole different world when it's on your shoulders.
Well, I bring it up because I feel like people. It's interesting to other people to listen if they're still listening to us. That the mindset around that, right? Because I think everybody struggles with that, don't you? Like, Don't you think everybody has some kind of dream, some kind of entrepreneurial dream to go do that? And it's really hard in this society. It takes a special person to, especially when you're raising kids and families, to go out and do that and make that. I mean, that's a really hard, it's a tough risk to take.
One of the coolest things in the position where I'm at, where I've grown this to, is me and my family are doing well. My kids are taken care of. They eat every night. We have a roof over our head, right? But now that we've got this team, like it's really cool to sit back and think of, oh, I'm also helping provide for this person and their family, and this person and their family. And it's kind of that pinch me moment again when you sit back and look like, not only has this engulfed into something that provides for me, but it's also providing for everybody else. And I can't do it without them. Like there's no secret to that. Like we've outgrown that. But being able to sit back and be like, okay, this is bigger than just me now. It makes me feel really good.
I love it. What flows through your mind when you hear him talk about that, Kyle? As somebody who's always been an entrepreneur and
I mean, they all hit home, right? They all hit home. But yeah, I mean, you get the benefit of watching something grow past just your benefit is probably the most interesting thing, because it's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. But at the same time, you're like, well, if I didn't make this jump for me, it never would have worked out for everybody else too, right? And that can go a lot of different ways. But
I'm sure everybody on our team would be doing just fine, and they would have found something else to do. But it's pretty cool because I do genuinely think that the people that I get to work with love working together, love working with me, love what we do, and be able to have that outlet where there's a little bit of creativity, a little bit of flexibility. It's a more
you get
chill atmosphere. Like it's just a fun job.
You get some cool little differences to most photographers in your job, right? You get to see into people's lives. You get to see a variety of houses. I mean, there's
no telling what I'm walking into shoot to shoot.
And to be honest, most people would probably say realtor, some realtor that they know, right? But if somebody asked me who's seen the coolest and biggest variety of houses and everything, I'd be like Landon Day.
Oh, definitely
He's
Landon.
seen the crappiest houses you could ever think of,
and
he's walked into these mansions, and like these are things that are normally different.
$20 million mansions to double wide meth trailers in the woods, everything in between.
Fun fact. I want to share a fun fact with you, but before I do, so I want to just point out also that photography beyond, let's call it wedding photography, right? Beyond that, the kind of photography that you do, it's a hard business to break into and be successful, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Very few people that are as successful as you doing it.
So let's put realtors and photographers kind of in the same conversation here. If somebody posts on Mansfield Talks, does anybody know a realtor? And instantly there's 1,000 people tagged.
Yep.
And then say, does anybody know a photographer? It may not be
1,000 people tag Landon.
But holy cow, it's amazing. and for 10 years, I didn't know this page existed.
Mm-hmm.
Did not even know it was there. And then one day somebody added me to it. I'm like, oh my, there's a world here I didn't even know existed with all these moms talking to each other
Mansfield
about
Talks,
who they
too,
recommended.
let me tell you.
And then you sit back and you look like all these people are photographers, and you're like, I don't want to be cocky or arrogant or conceited, but I don't know any of y'all.
I don't know any of them.
How's this working? And they're like, it's so and so. And there definitely are great photographers in the area. I don't want to take away from that, but it's just amazing when you sit back and look. You say how hard it is to break into. The fact I've been doing this since 2004, almost 20 years into doing professional photography, when most people aren't there for a year or two at the most.
Well, and you've done some things right too, right? To leave your stamp and make all of us remember you. We just left your yearly appreciation party, right? Where I think every Yeti in my house.
He does it biannually.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I could never forget Landon because my kids will be drinking out of Yetis that have his name on it.
That's right. Because you have 12
they
of
last
them
forever. Those will outlast me. So.
They will outlast, and I have one for the last 8 years. So it's
You didn't even have any kids yet. He's working on that, but
coffee. I drink my coffee every morning out of a DayDream photography cup. Yeah. So
I love it. I love it. So fun fact that Landon, I don't know if you still do this or not, but I feel like you're more high level, teaching everybody, right, keeping the team going. So you and I used to play this little game, and I don't know how many people you did this with, so I'm just going to pretend it was you and I's little game. Every time I had a listing, you would be out there, right? This is back before you had a whole team, right? This is back in the early days. And you would do the listing and you would guess what I was listing it for. And almost every time nail the list price without looking at comps and doing this big analysis and discussing with clients. And just to your point, he's seen so much. He would sit there and shoot and he's like, okay. And I'm like, all right, Landon, what you got today? And he's like, all right, well, I think this one's going on for 240, and I'm like, I
think at the time this was like 107. It was that long ago.
the median price point back then was probably a couple $100,000 less than it is now. But I was always impressed how close you would get with very little knowledge. Now, it's possible.
It's harder now.
It's possible though that you were playing me and you were going on Zillow beforehand. And
it just became the game that I really like doing that. Like, it's about this square foot. It's about in this neighborhood. It's about this finish out. Yeah, it's about this, and could get pretty dang close a lot of times.
He did pretty good.
Get most of the information we use to do the comps on it. I mean, he'd get the square footage, come out and shoot it, the rooms,
the condition, the amenities, everything. He had it all.
Probably saw it more than we did because he edited all the photos. So.
All right, Landon, how do people get a hold of you if they need you?
So our website's going to get you 99% of the information. It's daydreamphotography.com. We even have .net too if you want to go that direction. We've got both domains, but like I said, we're down here in downtown Mansfield. All of our phone numbers, contact, email, etc., right there at daydreamphotography.com, and you can find us there.
So your photography,
real estate, commercial, all of the above.
Okay, so your photography makes people, after they see it, makes them want to daydream?
Absolutely.
Is that it? Like I see one of your photos and all of a sudden I just kind of go off into...
my last name is Day, so it kind of works.
And I can attest here that we talked all about this real estate photography, but your portrait photography and everything is also
actually amazing, you know what?
So.
You got a point, and that should not be downplayed here is... When you're walking into his office and in his studio, the pictures that you've got up there to demonstrate your abilities are mind-blowing. Like you've explained to me how you've done some of these things and they are next level photography. Like it's incredible. If you all are running around downtown Mansfield and you want to pop in on him and see his stuff, it's absolutely amazing.
So let me say this real quick before we go. So anybody can say they're a professional photographer. Like there's no degree necessarily that you have to have. There are some
as a camera.
Yeah, and there are some amazing photographers that I know that are just.
Remember back when you used to have to know how to develop stuff?
I actually taught that. But there are some amazing photographers that are completely self-taught and are doing amazing things and killing it in the business. That being said, there's something to be said. Like we have me and Catherine are both certified professional photographers on our team. Like we went above and beyond and learned courses on how to do crazy stuff with lighting or how to combat weird situations and what these camera settings can actually do if you get basically stuck in a situation that is difficult. That's not just a normal one. And then I've got my photographic craftsman's degree, which is what I earned for teaching and bettering the industry and traveling when I was doing all that and teaching what we do. And then I actually earned my master's of photography, and a lot of that was based off of print comp and awards that I won for these crazy photography or these crazy photos that you're talking about. So I guess all that being said, like I'm not, and our team is not just some guy who picked up a camera and thought they could figure this out one day. Like there was a whole lot of education and art form into this of beyond just. I mean, we do have the best equipment that money can buy. Like our equipment is second to none. But I could give Kyle that camera right now, and he can't do what we can do.
It's a great combination between entrepreneurship, great photography, and you just being a little bit of a nerd.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So, yeah.
Landon was the first one to implement drone photography into his business that by far, like he beat everybody probably by a couple years. I think he had like one of the first drones and he mounted his own camera on it or something. And we've got some pictures. I've got pictures in my office.
They sucked, but it was there.
I got pictures in my office from, what was that, 2008?
I don't think I've ever seen Landon happier in the last like 10, 12 years than the day I saw you opening your drone and you're like, you got something for me to use this on?
Yes, exactly.
You're ready to go.
It was such a cool.
During the flood, what was that? 2008,
right
2010,
on 2010. Over there.
2011.
We went over and we shot when the water in Joe Pool Lake came up higher than it had ever been. We're like, this is an opportunity. We need to shoot this, and we shot some cool photos of Lake Ridge High School and my neighborhood.
Was Lake Ridge even there then? I mean, that was about that same time.
It was. They had just built Lake Ridge, and I literally printed those and gave them to all the teachers at Lake Ridge High School and all the homeowners that lived along the lake there. Did you know that?
I did.
I still have those up in my office, and those are cool moments. But that goes back to your creativity and willingness to be, get ahead of things and your ingenuity. They didn't have camera mounted drones when you did that. You mounted your own camera, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure when they did have camera mounted drones, you were probably the first one to buy one of those too.
Probably. And then, I mean, I very vividly remember like 3D tours at the same time. Like the first time I saw that, I was like, I've got to have that. And I said, I've got to have that before it becomes second nature. Now it's not uncommon, but same way with the drone. When we did our first 3D stuff, like it was amazing because nobody else did it. It also took so long. It was so expensive, but it was nobody else did it.
It's only the first time I saw a drone crash, right?
I've crashed a few drones.
That's where I nerded out and saw
Salt
a
right
drone.
here in that one.
What happens to a drone when it loses connection, right?
Oh,
Something
yes.
like that.
yes. I actually sank one in the ocean in Belize this summer, so there's that too. While we're having confession time.
I hope you got it on
jealous.
video.
I'm jealous you were in Belize.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to say I sank a drone in Belize. That means I was there.
All right. Well, I think
I think the Landon Love Fest might be over.
Yep. If you want to contact Landon Day by phone, go to his website,
Go to his website.
DayDreamPhotography.com. Give us a call, 817-818-9039. We'd be happy to give you that web address again. Or shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com.
Landon likes that.
We will auto-respond with DayDreamPhotography.com.
We will auto-respond.
We won't auto-respond. We'll actually read it and respond.
I'm just kidding. Thanks for coming in, Landon. Talking
Would have missed it, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
We are TPM, and we are out.
We are out.